Another Ants on a Rock video. Welcome to the Ant Corner.
Hey there Ant fans, welcome back to another video. I'm Tom, but you can just call me Mr. Rock or whatever you want to call me. In this episode, we're going to be diving in and taking a look at my massive multi-species tank, or MST as I've started calling it for short. But before we do that, I'd like you all to do me a little favour and hit that subscribe button for me. It only takes 2 seconds, but it helps out my channel massively. Now we've done that, let's get on with the video.
I've been wanting to add more height and expand this tank for a long time. The expansion is still to come, but I've started to add more height. First job is I need to cut back all the foliage that's already there and make room for the expansion I'm planning. So here we go. And now that's done, let's have a little look at the before and after photos. I did take off a lot, but I made sure I left lots of life. And now for the next stage of my plan. I went foraging and got these sticks, and I'm going to use them to add height to the tank. So here we go. It's just a matter of finding a suitable position for all the sticks. So I sped this up for you just so you can see how I did it. I went in and I had a rough idea of how I wanted it to look and what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to connect, touching to the nest in areas that the polyrachus dives were already using. I wanted it to spread out in different directions. I wanted to give them suitable areas to climb and lots of extra height and space for them to nest if they need to make more satellite nests as the colony grows. I think I've achieved that. Let me know in the comments if you think I have as well. I used a combination of different sticks to get the height and effect that I wanted, and I pinned them all together on a much larger stick with 2 prongs. This way, I haven't used any silicone or glues to hold the sticks in place. They just rest upon each other as they would naturally fall in the wild. This is keeping in line with the idea that this is a completely natural tank and have very few foreign substances in it. No silicones or foams. Can you guess the 4 foreign objects in this tank? Leave me a comment in the section below. So I think I've achieved my goal of extra height and climbing space for the polyrachus dives. Stretching these sticks from one side of the tank to the other is going to give them easy access around the tank and lots of places to climb and play. And as you can see from these next bits of footage, the ants didn't take long to start exploring. It didn't take long for this first brave worker to start exploring along the lower path, closely followed by a second worker who decides to explore the higher path. It didn't take long, and they were followed behind by many, many more workers. In fact, The nest just sort of exploded out with workers at one point. I'm not quite sure what's attracting this big mass of ants to this part of the stick, but they found something that they like. Maybe a little bit of sap that hasn't quite dissolved off yet. The isopods also join in with the exploration, running up and down the sticks, getting in the way of the ants, and sometimes getting in trouble with them as well. This has become an ant superhighway, an easy way for them to get from one side of the tank to the other, which is going to make some really cool footage later on. Even the beetle started having a good exploration. The white spots in the beetle is just where it's messed about with the barrier a bit, just a little bit of talcum powder and nothing to worry about. By this point, the nest is an absolute boiling pot of ants, them pouring out of every little hole. Later on that evening, I went to check again. You can tell it's late in the evening because the red lights have come on in preparation for the main lights to turn off. As you can see, the ants are very, very busy. They're starting to expand their nest and build up closer to this stick expansion, exactly as I wanted. Polyrhacus dives are an arboreal weaver ant. This means they live above ground and do not dig colonies into the dirt like most. They use their larvae to spin silk in between bits of debris and leaves that they collect to form these nests, as you can see here. It takes a lot of protein for the larvae to spin this silk, so as there's a massive building project underway, I thought it'd be a good idea to give them a few roaches, cut up already, easy food to feed to the larvae and keep them going. Let's keep watching for a minute and we'll do that next. As soon as I placed those 3 roaches into the tank, they got swarmed by worker Polyrhacus dives. As you can see, there's quite a few of them. This is whilst there's still workers doing a building project. There's way more ants than I ever thought there was. I thought I was on about 1,000. I'm now thinking closer to 1,500. There's a lot of ants, which makes me more glad that I got on with doing this expansion that I've been meaning to do for quite a while. As you saw whilst I was cutting it back, I take most of the cuttings out. I then check them and isolate them for a few days to check for any inhabitants. And then they'll go into the isopod bins to be broken down and eaten away by the isopods. I also left a significant amount of smaller leaf debris. This will feed the isopods such as these, which already live in the tank, and it will also aid the Polyrhacus dives, giving them more building material. But as you can see, I have a huge colony of isopods living in the tank with the Polyrhacus dives. I can't pronounce the Latin name, so I'll put it here, but they're called pachelbels. They're really easy isopods to keep, and they breed really fast in the right conditions. Suitable and perfect for this tank, they have spread like wildfire. They help break down any exoskeletons or remains left behind by the ants. I always make sure that there's lots of cucumber and other things like that for them to feed on, as they absolutely go nuts for it. I have a feeling that they get most of their water from things like the cucumber as well. They also need a steady source of calcium to help them shed and reproduce. I provide lots of eggshells, such as this one, which they've actually taken to inhabit in. No problem with that, they've eaten most of it already. And they can be quite ferocious eaters as well. They will fight amongst themselves, they will fight with other insects, and they'll stand their ground against the ants as well, devouring everything that I put in within a day or so. Really doesn't take long. Really impressive species. Also living in here are darkling beetles. They produce Mario worms, the larger form of worms to mealworms. Now, I cycle these, which means they spend a while in the tank, but then when I see more and more of the population growing, as the worms pupate and turn into beetles, I take them out and I put them straight into my beetle bin, which I then use to reproduce Mario worms and feed to my colonies. This ensures that A, I have an active cleanup crew within the soil, B, I have a constant supply of beetles being produced in this tank under perfect conditions, and C, I have a large growing colony of these beetles producing Mario worms in a separate bin just to feed to my ants, saving me money in the long run. Also living in this tank are many other species. We have springtails and other things like that to help with the cleanup crew. But we've also got some more elusive inhabitants as well, such as the millipedes. We have 3 species of millipedes: red tie flats, these bumblebees, and my giant olive millipedes. Most I do not see much during the day at all, and they're very rare to see at night as well. In fact, this is the only footage I've got for over a month or two. So I've slowed it right down just so we can appreciate the beauty of this millipede. As stated, this is a bumblebee millipede, and you can clearly see the yellow and black lines striping across its body all the way down. These went in as juveniles, and they have slowly been growing whenever I see them, which is quite rare, but it's nice to see them and know that they're doing well amongst the other creatures in the dirt. Another very elusive species are my vampire crabs. These are red devil vampire crabs, and here's just one of them. I have 3 in the tank, and they help keep the pond area clean of any debris and leftover exoskeletons from the ants. Being scavengers, they'll eat almost anything, but they also love to eat algae and the duckweed from around the pond, again keeping it clean and helping with that bioactivity. These vampire crabs are starting to go extinct in the wild, and have only recently been recognised by scientists, although people have kept them in captivity for quite some years now. But this does mean that not many scientific discoveries have been made about them, and there's lots of research still to be done. I find them absolutely fascinating, and I love watching them walk all around the tank. They don't just stick to the water area like some crabs, but they actually enjoy spending most of their time on the land, as long as they have access to water whenever they need it to keep their bodies moist and help with molting. Here we have another inhabitant. This just appeared, I don't know how or why, but a slug just appeared in the tank one day. It could have made its own way in, but I couldn't find the trail through the barrier which I would have had to have crossed to get into the tank, so it might have already been living here. Their eggs can remain dormant for many months, if not years, which is really surprising, but really interesting to find out. This was a shock to see, as I removed the snail not long ago. But as it seems from this, the slug didn't last long, and the Polyrhacus dives took a liking to it. This being the way of life in the wild, and being a completely natural tank, I am not inclined to do anything about it, but watch. Although I do feel bad for the slug, as it really had no idea what it was wandering into. Again, this is a completely natural bioactive tank, many things inside will kill each other and eat each other like they do in the wild. I put in more than enough food to keep everyone happy, and most fights don't occur, but there's always the possibility of it, as it is a completely natural setup. Which reminds me, don't forget to leave me a comment if you can think of those 4 foreign objects that are in the tank. I'll give you one last look at the tank, just to help before I go.
I hope you all enjoyed that video on my massive multi-species tank. I'm sorry it took me so long to get it out, but I've got a couple more planned and already filming and in the works. So make sure you have hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the future. Also, you can keep up to date on all the videos on my channel and plenty more stuff on my Discord. So make sure you check out the links in the description. But as always from me, see you again, ant fans.
A massive thanks to my Patreon supporters for making this all possible. Jason Walker and Kevin Rogerson, you're both absolute legends. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, then check out the links in the description. As always from me, see you again, ant fans.